Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Divorce Unplugged podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Nicole Cox, and you know me on socials as the family law liaison.
Hi, everybody. Keegan Burke. I am co-host of Nicole's, and you may know me as Divorceology on all of the socials. A couple disclosures and disclaimers to get out. Not a lawyer, not lawyering, not your lawyer. This isn't legal advice. This is a conversation, all things divorce custody related. So, looking forward to getting into today's conversation.
Yes, and to just follow up with what Keegan said, I am an attorney. I'm not your attorney, and we're not lawyering here. This is not legal advice, but it's raw talk.
Yeah, yeah. So today's topic is one that I think is timely because we are moving into the holiday season. Thanksgiving right around the corner, which means Christmas and Hanukkah and all the other, what is it, Festivus, if you're a Seinfeld fan,
Yeah.
uh, Festivus for the rest of us. But ultimately, it's a very trying time, no matter where you sit in your dissolution or custody process, for lots of reasons that we're going to unpack today. And I think that hopefully you come away with some, key notes, key considerations, and things that are really important to use moving forward in your case, in your situation. So let's get right into it. And I think it's probably realistic to expect triggering events to be centered around holidays, right? I mean, I think everybody, how important to you is Christmas or Easter or Fourth of
Right.
July, right? It's probably pretty
Yes.
important to all of us, you know.
It's some people like Christmas, some people like Christmas Eve, but there's always a day assigned to one parent or the other.
Yeah, and I think we find all too often that parents generally use the holidays as a means to drive control or assert power or leverage the children for certain elements of desire. So maybe they want something and they're willing to give a holiday or use the kids as bargaining chips. And I would say this to any man, woman, don't do that, right? This isn't an opportunity to challenge the other side or create an opportunity for conflict, albeit you should go into holidays expecting conflict.
Oh, yes. They bring in a lot of conflict. And I'm sure you know, even as just as a coach, you get so many phone calls right before the holidays. People want the ex parte, the emergency orders, for one holiday.
Yeah, listen, I can appreciate why that happens, and even if it's unintentional, kind of control, right? I understand that a lot of people are emotionally attached. Their entire lives have been centered around certain holidays or all the holidays, so there's an emotional attachment to it, and I understand that. But I will tell you from a coaching perspective, right? The last thing you want to be doing is leveraging the court to drive an emergency request for a particular holiday, right?
Right.
And so, in that vein, what would you recommend as it relates to holidays and scheduling to your clients?
Well, I've had several situations with my clients where at some certain times, if there was a modification going on, make sure you put that holiday that you really specifically want and you don't have, or put that in a modification. And make sure you get it in front of your attorney well before, if you have one, well before the holiday comes up. And then also, if you can't have your child on that specific holiday, we always like to have people focus on creating new traditions.
Yeah, yeah. So you actually bring up a couple points, right? And so let's
Yeah.
unpack that. First, if you don't have a court order or you're in flight in your case and there's a holiday coming up, but you won't have an order, start working through a negotiation process with the opposing side, right? I mean, you can always negotiate, you can always communicate, you can always try to find middle ground. But again, in those negotiations, it's you may be giving up something, right? If you go into that with the expectation that you're not necessarily looking to win, but you are looking to solve for the things that are important to the children. I would also point out that if you don't have a custody order in place, it's probably one of the first holidays you're going to come across as a separated household. And so remembering the baseline that the kids, it's also their first time. And so it's a new normal, it's a new experience, and they need to be front and center, right? What are the kids' needs as it relates to these particular holidays? And like you said before, right, there are certain traditions that may be historical or legacy. Be considerate of that if that's the case for the other party. Be consider that if it is your case and make the case and make the request, but understand that you may not get it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, just be really conscious of trying to get out ahead of holidays and not trying to solve for it day of. The second
Right.
point you brought up is if you've got a custody order, this is where ambiguity gets really, really difficult. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a custody order and it's regular, standard, week on, week off, whatever it is, and it rolls through a holiday. What is your holiday schedule? Do you have one? If you don't, get one. If it's something you can negotiate, great. If it's something you need court relief for, you don't do it the week before Thanksgiving, i.e., now. You do it a few months prior and you start working towards a reasonable holiday schedule. And I would say the best is just alternate, right? Odd years, even years,
Right.
split it up right down the middle in some form or fashion. And to your third point, creating traditions. Create a tradition that is fluid, right? Not one that's going to impose or restrict your custody or your timeshare with the opposing party, but one that the kids can look forward to because every year is going to be a little bit different in this new normal. So being willing to do that, get the excitement, set your own new kind of path forward, your new tradition is a really good way to go. I completely agree.
You know what else I see often? And I think that everybody should be willing to work with the co parent in these scenarios is if somebody's parent is coming to town, if there's a grandparent or there's family members in town. I think that if you can work through that and somehow negotiate even an hour or two, if you have the parenting time and let the other parent have them so that the family members can see the child, I think that that's a huge step forward, and that's also in the child's best interest.
Totally agree, and that goes even further to things like travel, right? Holiday travel is a nightmare. We don't like to do it on our own, let alone with a family of kids, and you're doing it by yourself. But I know lots of people try to restrict travel and don't let them go anywhere, but these
Mhm.
are the few opportunities maybe for your kids to see their extended family once a year. Be flexible with what's available for itinerary. And by the way, yes, there's a lot of itinerary out there, but not all of it's affordable. So being flexible is instead of drop off at 2, it's 5, or pick up at 7 instead of 4. You have to be willing to kind of work through those motions. And it doesn't require a hard stance. It doesn't require court intervention or contempt charge for
Right.
showing up late. That's just a waste of time, energy, money, and conflict in a situation where we're all supposed to be super thankful. We're all supposed to be giving. We're all supposed to be enjoying our holidays, whether it's together or separate, whatever it is. I just find that holidays are such a tricky thing in divorce and custody. What is
Agreed.
what is your position on new partners? Because this is a unique dynamic, and I've got a couple different thoughts about it, but I want to know yours.
So I think that new partners typically should not have a place in a holiday with children that are newly separated. Okay, I know that's a tough one maybe to hear, but there's so much transition going on with the kids anyways, and there's so many new things happening, and they're not with that parent that they're used to being with. I don't think it's fair to bring in a new person, romance, love interest, whatever, on that holiday. And I'm very skeptical about I mean, my position is to wait a year,
Fair?
at
Yeah.
least. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's an interesting one. I can understand it. Um, I historically have taken a really broad look at new spouse, and I think the lens that I try to look through is one: do I have a say in the other side's do I have a say in the other side's spouse? No. Do I want to say? No. What I want ultimately is that whoever they get with is the best person for them and hopefully an additive person to our children's life.
Right.
So the lens that I would kind of deflect to is the person problematic? Are they a criminal? Are they a druggie? Are they, a
Right.
net negative, personality in the children's life? that may be where I would be more restrictive, but otherwise, I'm generally open to new spouses, new relationships. I would say this with the caveat to your point, and I agree. I don't think it's good for any kid at any point just to be having a revolving door of new girlfriends or new
No.
boyfriends. It's That's just not something you want your kids to experience. And so I would leave it to each adult to make the determination. Is it a reasonable thing for me to introduce them to my new partner? And I would measure that through the lens of, is this partner going to stick around and will they be an ongoing presence in my children's life?
Well, there you go, and that's why I said you almost have to wait a month. 3 months is certainly not enough, and 6 months is, maybe. But, like, I think it needs to be a year, and especially then I could go on a whole 'nother tangent about dating and all the things, and you don't really know in most cases. I'm feeling as if you can't really trust very much anymore. Sorry, just,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fair. It's fair. I just look at it as there are relationships that go really well for a year and fall apart at 18 months, right? And so I don't know that time is the answer. I think character is. And so I totally get it. It generally, if the person's been around for a year, you would think that they're going to be around for longer
mhm.
just because you've made it to a year. But again, I think it ultimately comes down to character because there are people that get with bad people and they go 20 years and you still wouldn't want your children around
Well,
those
there's
folks,
that too.
right?
Mhm.
So it's a tough one. It's a tough call. I think ultimately, though, you have to be considerate that, hey, you're focused on your life, your spouse, your stability, and what you're
Well,
going to
now when
provide.
you say spouse, that's different than just somebody you're dating.
Fair, true, true. Totally agree with that, and that is a good clarification, right?
Mhm.
Um, all right, let's talk communication during the holidays. This is an interesting one. Holidays, I think, are a time for each side, whether you have the kids or not, to really focus on your own environments in a separated world, right? Whether it's the first holiday you've been through or whether it's, multiple, it's really try to back down on unnecessary communication, whether it's school,
Yeah,
whether it's sports, whether it's bags, clothing, haircuts, whatever it is. Put a pause on, the intricacies, the intraday comms. Let the families, both sides, enjoy their holidays separate of one another. Now, that does not exclude the availability and communication with your children while they're with the other house, right? If the kids want to communicate, that should be an open door policy so long as it's not interfering with the other side. But that should be made available, right? If they're with me, then
right,
I want them to be able to communicate with mom. If they're with dad, or with mom, then they should be able to communicate with dad. And so it's just one of those things, right? Don't abuse it, be considerate, make your kids available. And again, it's the holidays,
right.
right? So those are the big ones.
Show some grace.
Yeah, that's really, I think, ultimately what it comes down to is grace, right? It's a time
Yes.
for grace all the way around. I don't think
There's
there's a holiday that doesn't include it.
there's a reason that my daughter's middle name is Grace.
No, no, perfect. So this kind of falls on what do we do in the holiday scenario where there's a violation, right? Like, what do you do if the other party's violating an order, whether it's a custody order or a holiday order? What's your opinion there?
Okay, so when you say violation, are they withholding?
Yeah, let's say they're withholding the kids.
That's a tough one. I think that you give it a certain amount of time and you try to contact and you try to negotiate, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think that you just immediately call the police and say, "Hey, why don't you show up at the door on Christmas Eve?" You know, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I would try the negotiation piece as much as possible. Use any professionals that you have on hand that could possibly be there to send emails and help out and mediate the scenario.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I mean, it's a tough one. I think documentation goes back to what we
Oh
always
yeah,
coach, right?
always.
Document it as best you can. I think that if there's a true violation of a custody order, whether it's holiday or just standard, um, again, I don't. I'm the last person to run to a contempt court and
Right.
try to push contempt. Even if it's a holiday, right? Even if it's Christmas, and it's the
Yeah.
most important holiday to your family, one instance is not really worth, chasing. It has to be a consistent pattern. But documenting so that if there is a
Right.
pattern, you've got evidence of that. I think that, at times a police report makes sense just as another layer of documentation, but don't get your kids involved in this,
I was gonna
kind of
say,
situation.
they don't need that on a holiday when
No.
Santa's supposed to be coming. No.
Yeah. No. So really, it's if it's not going your way, accept it, deal with it. But that goes to the mental side of it, right? The emotional side of holidays, which is why we're having this conversation
Uh-huh.
because we're so emotionally attached to holidays in general. Once you get into divorce, once you get into separation or custody, it's going to be difficult. It's never easy, I don't think.
No, never easy. No.
And to that end, right? Go into it knowing that you're probably going to have at least a holiday, if not all in some cases, but many not go the way you want, not go the way you expect. And so it's really a time to exercise a whole different level of control, emotional stability. These are really big opportunities for folks to really heighten their level of management in their case, right? I see all the time with folks where it doesn't go their way and they're emotionally attached to the particular day, and
Yes.
their behavior, their response to something not going their way is the ultimate problem. It's what actually gets used against them. So take it down a notch, apply grace to your own life, and
Yes.
have a different level of patience.
Yes. Do some self-regulating. And I know that's sometimes difficult, especially when it's a heightened scenario, but the best you can do to keep yourself calm and cool and try to work with the co-parent is as much as possible. You're just going to look better in court.
Yeah. And then here's another one that I just thought of. Gifts. So when we get into gifts and or, the parallel households, right? Like it's not a gifting competition, right? It is not something where you're trying to establish one versus the other, right? In a perfect world, right? The kids benefiting from separated household, they get multiple gifts, multiple places, but it's the ultimate child, not one versus the other. But two things. One, don't try to outdo the other with gifts because I think that's kind of a crappy way to go.
Right.
But also, don't beat yourself up if you're not in a position to be able to match the other side's gifts. That happens all the time on both sides of the coin. There could be lots of things and circumstances that impact that. But, listen, as far as I'm concerned, staying away from the material side of the world with kids, it's the time, it's the love, it's the attention, it's the experience that they remember, not the Lego or the monster
Right.
truck, or whatever toy they get for the, minutes that they use it in the year that they receive it. So
You said something important. I knew some families that would just give away experiences on Christmas and not gifts.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So again, it all kind of ties back to that emotional, mental expectation of give yourself some room, do the best you can, and I think it's a really good opportunity not just to manage yourself, but maybe even extend an olive branch to the other side, right?
right.
It's a time to lay down arms if it's a contentious situation. Maybe you get some grace from the other side, and maybe it's a jump off point to start moving through better negotiation in your everyday life that's non-holiday focused,
And I
right?
love it when you say that. It's a jumping off point to move through better negotiation because these holidays come and go, but every single day of co parenting is there.
Exactly, exactly. So I think it's a big opportunity for lessons learned. It's a big opportunity to work through your process. And by the way, for those that need to be real strategic or tactical, it's a big opportunity to maybe use the other side's poor behavior to your advantage if that's the
If
situation you're
that's
in.
what's happening, then
Right?
document it.
Yeah, yeah. So, closing remarks, thoughts. What do you have?
Right. I mean, I think we talked about it. Be aware that holidays are situations that can blow up very quickly. Manage your emotions, keep yourself cool, try to negotiate with the other party. And if you have to, just keep documenting. Have some grace.
Yeah, no, I like it. I would just close off this session with put the kids first. Um, I mean, we are adults. We've been through these holidays. We know what to expect. It's just another day. Find new ways to manage it for yourself. Find ways to make it, a new experience for your kids. Be positive, guilt free. Manage your expectations and your behavior, and put the right foot forward. It's a great chance to do that, and I think everybody comes out better for it. So. Um,
Exactly.
Thanks for listening. Like, listen, subscribe, do all the things. And until next time,
See you guys later. See you soon.
see ya.